All right, everyone. We started off today talking about gated community liberals and, how they talk about black people. Now we've got to talk about city liberals and how they think about suburban individuals. Many of which, by the way, are NPR cup users and sweater wearers that take after Jimmy Carter. They're going to save the world by lowering their thermostat a degree and buying another chia pet because they figure it scrubs the environment it's environmentally friendly. They bought a couple of Boston ferns. They're reforesting the planet. They stopped mowing their front lawn really out of laziness, defying the housing authority, which they apply to everyone else in every other situation. Anyway, we're going to talk about the suburbs. Right now, there's a worry in some areas of the country. I notice that they tend to overlap with cities that are run by Democrats. The cities are becoming overrun with crime and homelessness and migrant crisis. It's spreading out beyond the southern border because of the actions of people like Greg Abbott, which is, to their credit, that's the right thing to do. Spread the pain around. Why can't Chicago house, a million illegal aliens? Why can't New York City? Supposedly these places generate all the revenue and support all of those bumpkins in flyover territory. Well, if you got all of this money, if you got all of these resources, why don't you use them? Oh wait, you're kicking the native-born homeless out of your cities right now to make room for people who came illegally in the first place. It makes a lot of sense. Well, why don't you just build another homeless shelter? Oh, you'd have to be begging Uncle Sam for the handout to do so. I'm sure some of that infrastructure money right now is going to house people who don't have a legal status. Anyway, the message couldn't be more telling. LaTanya Johnson is a state congresswoman from the state of Wisconsin. So working in the state house there. Very, very astute and solemn individual, as you can tell. She's got a message to the suburbanites that came to complain about the fact that Milwaukee's crime is so out of control that it's beginning to seep into the suburbs. Now, I will give one forward. She's not 100% wrong here. Suburbanites have deliberately walled themselves off from the inner city so that they can vote for liberal policies without worrying about the fallout, especially crime and homelessness and drug use related, of those policies. They are the ones in large part who have voted some of these individuals, especially at the state level, into power. You get what you vote for. But they've been sheltered from it. As a long-term non-fan of NIMBYism, I would tell the suburbanites, you're going to get what you vote for. So maybe you should vote a little bit differently. Like, hey, maybe instead of being taken in by the wokeness and id pole of the Democratic Party, maybe you can think about other options. It doesn't have to be the GOP. In some of those races, it's really no choice 2024, as you'll see. Do I want Mitt Romney or Barack Obama? Well, their policies are 90% the same. There's a reason why Obamacare was minted directly from Romney Care, you will see. When you're from Massachusetts, Mitt, yes, long-term, hard-right conservative. I remember he used to be called Hitler till he voted in favor of sweeping gun control laws. Anyway, here's the message from LaTanya Johnson to the suburbanites. You don't know what the fuck it's like to be in the inner cities, so fuck you. Fuck suburban voters. This is basically the Democratic Party's message, by the way. Not necessarily on its face as an actual slogan, because that wouldn't go over well with most voters. But in effect, the actual policies, especially on the local level, in city councils and stuff, mayors, on the local level, those policies have caused a situation where the quality of life is now beginning to lower in suburbia, at least on the edge of suburbia that's closer to the inner cities, or close to a main road. It impacts small-town America as well. Rutland is a great example, my hometown. Rutland has lost several thousand people off its population. Large swaths of the city are becoming quite seedy. Before the seediness was contained, it was just enough to be exciting. Rutland back in the 2000s, prior to the Great Recession, Rutland was a nice place to be. Yeah, you have the occasional meth trailer. Yeah, you have some rednecks and individuals who act like they are of a different demographic, and I can't use that word on a YouTube video. You had a lot of that in the Eminem period. I remember it fondly. Oh, sagging your pants and you're wearing a do-rag, and you are 100% fucking Germanic in ethnic origin. Makes a lot of sense. There's a little bit of copycatism there. Rutland always had problems, but it was better than it is now. Last time I went back a couple of years ago, things had deteriorated. In the wake of the recent population losses, the political upheaval there, etc., it's getting worse. And why is it getting worse? There's not a huge amount of native-born problem in Rutland. Rutland's just a random small-town America. A lot of Art Deco remnants from the 1920s, like the Service Center. It's got a fairly scenic little downtown. And the people there are, it's not a rich city. It's a working class city. Well, basically a town now. It's working class. But it was okay. Like if I walked around at night in 2010 in Rutland, Vermont, I'm not gonna worry about getting shot. I don't have to worry about getting mugged or anything like that. Maybe if you're a diminutive young female or something, you get harassed by rednecks or something. But by and large, it was reasonably safe. Small town America. Now, I guarantee that nobody doesn't lock their doors at night now. A lot more break-ins and shit like that. Fucking crack, meth, fentanyl, name it. Every problem under the sun. Why? Because of its unfortunately chosen location. You see that Rutland is at the juxtaposition, the absolute crux of 4 major cities. You've got New York City to the south. You've got Boston to the east-southeast. You have Albany and Troy area to the west, and then you have Burlington, number 1, and also Montreal in Canada to the north. It therefore has a bunch of drug smuggling going through it, and probably, unfortunately, human trafficking. Well, I wonder why there are more shootings in Rutland lately. And Burlington, by the way, they've been goddamn overrun. When I was at UVM, when I was living in UVM campus for several years, I could go out at night into the so-called seedy area around Pearl Street. Now you got some bars and shit like that. I never felt threatened. It was quiet. It was scenic. Now there's a shooting every weekend. And it's spreading out. It used to be that these sorts of things, they happened in a small area of the city, but it's beginning to spread now. I don't blame suburban voters, therefore, for being concerned about this. The suburbs tend to be the place where the middle class goes to raise their 2 kids or something. And they don't want that sort of shit around them. But they are voting for those policies. They are the ones that are voting into power groups also that want to end redlining by completely redistributing infrastructure networks and knocking holes under the highway system and rerouting things and doing all manner of crazy shit that'll require the appropriation of significant amounts of private property, I would, by the way, point out, in order to radically redesign city structures altogether to try to mix everything together into a hodgepodge. Well, what you do if you have infected tissue is you remove it. You don't take the infected tissue, cut it up into little pieces, and re-inject it all over the body in hopes that it goes away. That doesn't make any sense. The fact is that areas of our inner cities are infected. They are sick. And no attempt is being made at the federal level, often at the state or even local level, to address the issue. Instead, they tell people who are worried the infection will spread to them, sit down and shut up and just deal with it. You don't know what it's like anyway. Fuck off. Well, that's a great campaign slogan. Fuck off. That should be the Democratic Party's 24 slogan. Fuck you, we're going to destroy you. It'd be apt. It wouldn't exactly be wrong, would it? It appears to be what their policies have done to areas that they've controlled for decades now, isn't it? Not that the alternative is necessarily always better. There are Republicans out there that are a bunch of NIMBYists too. They don't care about the inner cities. They don't live in the suburbs. If they do, it's in a gated community. They've got their own private security. It's like with gun control. They want to disarm you because they're afraid of you. They're not going to disarm their own security forces. They could take the first step tomorrow. They're worried about climate change, but you never see them plant a tree. Judge them by their actions. Look at these rich inner cityists. Normally the people that are in the city council and stuff, they're from the upper echelon. They're not the ones living directly in the ghetto. They live on the other side of the inner city that's quite a bit nicer, and they have security in their building, usually. If not only their own private security forces in their penthouse or something. That's what they have. Bunch of fucking chuckleheads. That's about all. Peace out.